All right, welcome back, everybody. As you can see, I have a special guest with me today. This is my friend Jill MacDonald. Say hi to everybody, Jill.
Hey everyone.
I'm so excited to have her with me today because we are going to talk about how to make changes in your home, especially around the nutrition that you're choosing for your family. And Jill is an expert in teenagers because she is a mother of 6 and a brand new grandma as well. So she has been there, done that with this, and I just wanted to pull her into this conversation because, as you guys know, I don't have teenagers yet, but I know that you're really going to glean a lot from Jill's wisdom, and she's got some tips to share with you today. This month, we're talking about change, which is always something we have to face when we are wanting to go from the standard American way of not really caring about our food or our health very much and really becoming intentional about things. And I know that can be overwhelming. So if you've ever felt like stuck or overwhelmed to start taking steps, especially because of a spouse or a child or a teenager that's kind of making it difficult or making you nervous about making those changes, this video is for you. If this is your first time seeing these, I do videos here every single week inside our YouTube channel and our Facebook group. It's called Healthy Living with Danielle Dinkelman. So be sure to go and subscribe or join us there if you want more stuff like this. So that being said, Jill, let's dive in. So I reached out to you. I said, Jill, we're talking about change. We're talking about teenagers. What do you think? Can you join this conversation with me? And you were like, heck yes. And you're excited. You've got some things to share with people. So when I first reached out to you, what was the first thing that came to mind that you wish other moms could know when it comes to making changes in what you're feeding your family?
Absolutely. Well, with regards to teenagers, they're not as hard as people think, and they're not as scary as people think. I think there's a lot of stigmatism with teenagers that it's kind of a done deal, and there's no more changes can be made. They're set in their ways. Well, just like anybody, as moms, we desire to eat healthy and we want to do better. And sometimes it's taken us years to get to that place. But teenagers are the same. You just need to introduce some good habits and work on, introducing good quality foods. And that doesn't happen all at once. There are some people that can kind of make those changes overnight, and that's awesome. But I think there's still a lot of things behind the scenes that led to that. And so that's really what I want to hit, is that teenagers are not a lost cause. They can be stubborn, and each and every one of us has a very different personality, different likes, different dislikes. And so teenagers are just the same. And so, yeah, I really want to address how to really kind of approach them and things that we can do to help them be successful.
I love that. Okay, so you're right out of the gate addressing the limiting belief that probably a lot of moms have, that teenagers are a lost cause. Anything that I do here, they're going to fight me on. They don't care about health. You're saying that's just not true. There's really some possibilities here. And I have to say, I know you pretty well, Jill, and I know that you are very in tune with who your children are. And I think that's a big foundation, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a big foundation of your parenting, is that you've always really strove to understand the individuality of each of your kids. So that's pretty amazing. And I think any mom would really benefit from that. Is there one thing that you could point a mom to that feels like they don't quite understand their kids on that level? Is there something that you would point them to help them do that?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing is really seek for understanding before you seek to be understood. Go to them, listen to their cues, because they're teaching you and telling you every single day, just like little children are. When you have a baby and you bring a baby home, what do? You listen to the baby's cries. You learn what cry does what for that child and what they need. A teenager is the same way. They're going to give you clues. They're going to give you signals. And it's really, you need to work on that relationship with them. And one of the things that really, through kind of prayer and inspiration, I was really looking to connect with my kids on a deeper level. And, food is a relationship. Just as we have a relationship with our children, we have a relationship with food. Some of us have healthy relationships with food. Some of us don't. And so we need to first mirror those things, model good behaviors, model those good things, regardless of what's going on around us. But then we need to seek to understand our children. And so one thing that really came to me strongly was stop criticizing their choices.
Mm.
Really seek ways to be positive and connect with them. And so as I've been doing that, I have been noticing huge strides and changes in our family, and even much faster than I expected. Now, right now, I love that your theme has changed because we're all in a world of massive change, aren't we? It's
Absolutely.
difficult right now, and it's thrown a lot of people for a loop.
Yeah.
But it's also an opportunity. We've been given opportunity to connect better with our children, to connect better with our spouses, to really take a step back and look at our priorities. Sometimes in our life, we look at things and we just think we have to do this, and we have this huge list. And then we become so overwhelmed and so burdened that we get away from the things that we say we value.
Yeah.
So if we value our relationships with our children, if we value healthy eating, then we need to spend time focusing on those things.
Mm.
And so really, seeking to praise your children for their choices is really, really important. And so sometimes it can be hard because teenagers can be prickly pears. I'm on my 4th teenager now.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple more coming up soon. So yeah, I've found that, in fact, it was really interesting. I'll share a really quick story. Our 16-year-old, was working at a fast food place. He recently just got a different job, but he was working at a fast food place, and he came home one night and he was really frustrated. And I said, "Hey, what happened? What's going on?" So again, I was seeking to connect and listen. And he said, I have several managers that criticize me constantly. And he goes, "It just doesn't feel good." But he said, "But there's this one manager," he said, "he is always just finding the positive and telling me how much he appreciates the work that I do and how well I'm doing." And he loved that. And so there you go. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. My son was telling me right there that he valued praise over criticism. And sometimes we might think, well, yes, that's a simple idea. But again, it's easy to get caught in frustrations, especially with teenagers, when their room's messy, when, they're leaving things out, when, you're trying to smile at them and all you get back is a grunt and ugh, and you're going, it can be frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to dive in here a little bit and highlight what you're saying. So what I'm hearing is that he was responding better to praise than criticism. And I think what you're saying here is that praise works better than shame when we're trying to help someone make changes or to improve.
Yes.
And I think when we say that, I think most people say, yeah, okay, I could agree with that. But when you're actually parenting or you're actually managing, yeah, you think that, oh, I just need to pinpoint all the problems, point them out, make them feel bad, and then they'll change. And humans just don't work that way, do they? No. Yeah, so that's a perfect example of that. I love the analogy of what you water grows. So if we want the good behavior or the healthy eating or whatever to grow and to expand, we want to look for moments to catch them doing that and be like, wow, that's so cool that you chose that. How does that make you feel? That's a really powerful principle that I think as parents is sometimes a hard one to really live.
And like I said, it can be more difficult for teenagers because a lot of times the feedback you get from them can be negative for a long time.
Yeah.
But I am seeing a massive shift, like I said, with my 16-year-old, because I have been practicing this for a while and I'm seeing the effects. And it's like, he has been a lot more lovey. He's come to me and asked me questions more. He's been hugging me more. And I notice things have to be on his terms. Like when I try to go sometimes to give the love, I don't get that back. It's like, get away from me. So you just don't take offense. Just, okay, step back. All right. Just remind yourself that, it's life on their terms. And as they're learning to become adults, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to not be a teenager now. It is hard. Yeah. But I think the gifts that I've been given is I have not forgotten how hard it was to be a teenager. And I'm reminded daily. And so one of the things I remember very vividly about a teenager is my parents would talk to me and they'd say things that I'd roll my eyes and I'd grunt and I'd pretend like I wasn't listening. But every single thing I remember now, as I'm in my 40s, I remember what they said and I remember what they taught me, and those things stuck. And so it's really important to try to keep that in your mind, that it may seem like I'm not having an effect, but we need to indoctrinate our children as much as we can, because they're getting messages in the world every single day. They're being bombarded. And especially with like where we live here, I mean, and I know every state, I've seen this as well, we're bombarded with fast food and everything is just, you know, instant gratification. And so we have to be vigilant in bombarding our children with the messages that we want for them to hear. And when it comes to nutrition, just pound it as much as you can. But my next point I wanted to bring up was that be careful in how you do it. Yeah. One of the ways with teenagers, again, it can be difficult, but I try to throw in education in sneaky ways as much as I can. So, you know, my son would ask me for a ride to work. Oh, hey, can you give me a ride to work? Sure. Hang on a second though. I'm getting ready to go to the gym after I drop you off. And so I want to make sure that my body's really fueled with this nutrition. And so I'm going to make a really cool smoothie bowl with some bananas, because those carbs really help me when I'm working out. I say quick little things like that where, you know, it's not like I'm being preachy, but I try to bring in nutrition and education just anywhere I can. So I will slip it in. And especially when they're asking you for things is the best time to be able to have a connection with a teenager. When they ask you for a favor, when they want something, they're a lot more open to listening and to receiving. So that's my kind of second tip.
Genius.
Get them. Get them when you can. Get them when they're open. Because a lot of times, you know, they're kind of closed and they don't want, you know, they're like back off. But when they're open and they want favors or they want something, that's when I hit them.
Okay, I love this. This is exactly why I brought you on, because I knew that you would have like really specific things that you have seen work with your kids. So to recap a little bit of what you said here, like, so at first you said, well, don't focus on the things they're not doing. Don't shame them. Don't criticize them. But you're saying talk about food, teach about food. But you're saying those can be two separate things. Like when they're making their food choices, don't pick at them.
No, that's
but
not.
Then when you see opportunities to teach, take them. But I think sometimes we can, with good intentions as parents, sometimes we can overlap those two things and be like, try to catch them in the moment and be like, you know, you shouldn't be eating that because da 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 da. And that's what you're saying is maybe a little bit more of the preachiness.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, really, because the quickest way to get a teenager to sit down is to try to preach at them. They're not going to listen. So find ways to praise them for what they are doing, just everyday life. You know, hey, I noticed you put the toilet seat down. Thank you. I really appreciate that. When I went to the bathroom, you know, it was down for me. Good job. And, you know, just catch them doing good. And then when they ask you for a favor, just slip in a little quick, you know, hey, you know, I've got to get my smoothie bowl in real quick to fuel myself. I'm going to have this right before I go to the gym. Yeah. And I'd be happy to take you, you know, just something like that. Cool. Just slip it in, be real sneaky.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. Is there anything else? Are there any other tips that you really think that moms with teenagers should know when they're trying to do this plant-based thing?
The biggest thing that has helped me is start where they're at. Now, a lot of teenagers have sweet tooth. So that's where I start. Yeah. I started with my desserts and the snack food and stuff. And all of my family loves my nice cream. So I usually start out with a base of bananas. So I'll buy a big 40-pound box of bananas. And you may think, well, I only have a couple kids, or, you know, whatever you have. You would be surprised. When those bananas, let them get really nice and ripe and with the brown spots, and then peel them and put them in, you know, Ziploc bags or little Tupperware containers, put them in the freezer. And you'd be surprised. I can go through like 6 bananas for, you know, 2 to 3 servings of nice cream. And so I'll blend that up sometimes with a little bit of peanut butter. The other day I did one with banana, a little almond milk, some vanilla, and then just a little bit of frozen pineapple. My kids went nuts over it. My teenagers love it. Now there's a lot of other things where if I'm trying to go full out, you know, I made this soup, and this was a lot of years ago, but I made this soup and I just thought, I'm going to double the recipe. I'm going to really maximize my time and my effort. And so I made this soup and it burnt on the bottom and it tasted so bad. And I kept trying to rescue it and I added more and more and more. And it was just bad. And it was getting late. I was tired. I was hungry. The kids were hungry. So anyways, we ended up just chucking that and I think making some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I mean, this was quite a few years ago. They still bring that up. And you know what? Now I'm in a place, at first it bothered me all those years ago. It's probably like 15 years ago. Now I laugh about it and they'll say, remember that soup, Mom? I'm like, yeah, that was so terrible. And then I say, I'm so glad I've gotten so much better since then. And you guys love what I make. So I'll throw in things like that. But I started with dessert. I started with things that I knew. So look at your kids, especially teenagers, kind of look at their eating habits. And of course, a lot of them like junk food. They like fries and things because sometimes that's what they've grown up with. And when they're going to school, that's the type of things they're eating. And so don't expect to change those things overnight. It's a lot easier if you start when they're younger. But if you haven't, it's not over. You know, you still have an opportunity. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. And sometimes you don't see the benefits of that until they're teenagers. Or, until they're adults and maybe married. And sometimes kids become more conscious of that. Like our oldest now is married and we have our first grandbaby. And now she's been starting to kind of come back to me and ask me questions. And she's 21. And so she's a lot more conscious now that she's, you know, nursing her baby and she's married and has all these other things going on. Yeah. So you might not see the fruits of your labors until a few years down the road. But I promise you that your effort is not in vain, that it does have an impact. So it does make a big difference. So I started them, you know, with desserts and stuff. The next kind of thing I started a little more recently, and this is going really well. I'm so excited for this. So I signed up for some cooking classes online, and along with the cooking classes come some skill type classes, and this is involved for the whole family. So one of the lessons is about knife skills. Help your kids to be comfortable and confident in the kitchen. Have them work alongside you. And I was so surprised. At first I didn't quite invite my teenagers. I was doing it with the younger kids. And my teens came to me and they're like, what about us, Mom? And I thought, oh, I didn't know you wanted to do this. Yeah. So the younger ones kind of got a butter knife and we were working on our knife skills. And the older ones got, the sharper knives and absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. So find ways to incorporate your kids in the kitchen. And my goal eventually is to have each of the kids, I've heard many moms do this, have a night where they cook. And my 16-year-old does do that at times. And we're working on, helping him learn how to go from, the beginning and follow a recipe out. Because I think most parents, their goal is to have their kids be self-sufficient by the time they leave the house. Totally. So to be able to cook their own meals and to be able to know those things, it's not just a given. Take time with them. And that is one of the best ways. We've had some food fights in the kitchen and kids love that. So be playful, have fun, get in there with your hands, and teenagers respond really well to that. And I was so surprised because at first, I just kind of thought my younger ones were going to be more into that. And a couple of my teenagers have come to me and like, hey Mom, well, you've been working with them. And so, help them see what the process of cooking is. One of the things I like to do is get all my food out for my recipe all at one time. And then I use, as I use it, I put it back and then I clean up. Teach them good skills, good habits, teach them to be successful so that when they leave the home, they're confident in those things. My 20-year-old, he is like the master seasoning guy. He's really good at his seasonings. And at first he wasn't very on board with with the way that I was eating and what I was trying to introduce. And he was quite a bit older at the time, but then he ended up getting a girlfriend that was vegetarian. And so all of a sudden he was coming home and making me avocado toast with tomatoes, and he was all excited about that. So there's ways too, you can bring in other influences.
That always helps.
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
Okay, so I have a few just like rapid fire questions for you. Can we, is that okay if I just like, I'm just thinking like, okay, people with teenagers, what are some other questions they might ask? So I might have like a few. So number one, I'm thinking, when you decided to go plant-based, did you say, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm going to be cooking? And like, how did you do that? How did you approach that topic? Did you involve them in that process?
So at first I didn't. I kind of just was stepping my toes out into the water myself. And so I just decided to kind of make some changes on my own for a little while and not really approach my family. And after, it wasn't too long, I think maybe a couple weeks or a month, then I felt more confident in it. And then I kind of started to go to them and I said, I'm feeling so much better. I've been noticing this, this, and this from this. And so I want to start cooking healthier, and I want to involve you guys, and this is kind of what I'm doing. So I did wait a little bit before I introduced it.
It sounds like you tried it on yourself, and then
yeah.
I bet that was like pretty incredible for you to be able to speak from experience and, like you said, say, this is helping me feel amazing, and who doesn't want to feel amazing? So exactly. Okay, that's super cool.
Yeah, and so then I approached my husband. He was in school at the time, and he wasn't really looking to make any changes. And so I just took him aside privately, and we had a conversation. I said, look, this is what I'm doing, and I really I care about the kids, and I care about you and your health, but I understand that you might not fully want to join me. And he said, he goes, I'll eat some of what you make, but there are, some things that I still want to eat. And so I just said, well, would you mind, for instance, like soda and some of the sugary snacks and things? I said, would you mind keeping those at school in your locker? And he said, absolutely. He agreed. He felt okay with that. Now, I know other people that have had maybe a secret place in their house or whatever, but we made it an agreement that he would have those things outside of the home, and that wouldn't be a visual presence in our home, because part of the thing is, if you have it in the house, you're going to eat it.
Totally.
So I kind of slowly made over things and brought, better things into the house. And then the kids didn't see it. And then, one thing we did do, which, okay, I don't expect everybody to do, but we got rid of our TV for a period of time. And we actually don't subscribe to regular TV. We don't have any cable or anything like that. We have kind of like Netflix and Amazon. But it was amazing after getting rid of the TV, how much my kids, they stopped asking for McDonald's. They stopped asking for the fast food.
Oh.
So like I said too, they're getting subliminally, just barrage every day. And so again, that was a choice for me, but that really helped my family for a period of time to not see those commercials constantly. My kids just stopped asking for it.
Yeah. I think that's worth thinking about, because it's like you said, it's like if we're trying so hard to go upstream to the mainstream, we have to consider how many voices are out there and what are the conflicting messages to what you're trying to teach and what you're trying to implement in your home. That's totally valid. That's a really good point. I hadn't even thought of that. Okay, so I have one more question for you, and then I think we'll wrap up. This has been amazing. I think people are really, really going to enjoy thinking about their own family as they kind of have heard you share some stories and some experiences. So my last question is, was there ever a point that you felt like you needed to pull in other resources like documentaries or podcasts or anything that you kind of like handed, like, or a book? Like, did you incorporate any of that as you introduced this into your family?
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how that went. Did that work? Was that effective? And which formats or which podcasts or whatever did you use?
It was, absolutely. So on Netflix, there is tons, Forks Over Knives. What's the one where the guy ate McDonald's? And
is that the Super Size Me?
Yes,
Okay.
they loved that one. That was actually very impactful for my family because they felt like they could relate because it was like McDonald's and fast food, and that
Right.
was where we were at for a long time.
Okay.
Um, and so, yeah, so Super Size Me, I think, was one of the biggest ones. My husband and I both watched a little bit of Earthlings. I found it a little too graphic. After a while, I was like, okay, I got the point, and I stopped watching it. I did not show that one to my younger kids
Yeah.
because I felt like that would have been too.
A similar one along those lines is Cowspiracy. Did you
Yes,
see
yes.
that one?
So we have kind of once a week, we have family time where we get together and we hang out, we play board games. Sometimes I'll do a little lesson and teach them some things. Years ago, there's a book by a Dr. Sears, and forgive me, I do not remember the title, but in there he had a principle of a stop sign where it was like red light, these are foods that we never eat. Yellow light, these are foods that we eat sometimes, and then green light, these are go foods, eat these all the time. And so what I did was I sat down with my kids and I got this huge roll of paper and I had them lay down on it and we traced their bodies, and then we cut out pictures of food that go inside the body that are like everyday foods we eat all the time, the green light foods. And then the yellow light, we kind of put yellow light foods, we put on the kind of the outside of the body, and then not on the line of the body. And then the red light foods we put on the very outside. And so I gave my kids a visual of what it looks like to fuel your body really well. And
this is even with your teenagers. This wasn't just little kids.
I did this with all of them. And so that was really helpful for a visual. So, I mean, that was like, I think 10, 15 years ago. And so my older ones were just newly teenagers at the time. Since then, I've actually adopted a couple other things that I just thought about. So we got a pull-up bar, and we put it, above our door. Now, when my kids were younger, I could totally beat them with pull-ups. And so we made it kind of an ongoing competition between myself and the kids and even the teenagers. Now, as they're teenagers, they're totally crushing me. But the thing is I've shown them too that taking care of my body is important, and I go to the gym and I work out and I lift weights, and my goal this year too is really to be in the best shape of my life. I'm working on my flexibility and my stamina, and so I still have contests with my 20-year-old doing pull-ups, doing push-ups. And so I like to be, again, sneaky like that. Whereas, and then I talk to him, I'm like, man, I am so glad that I had that, that Buddha bowl today, and those carbs were amazing. And I have all this energy now. And, so we just kind of, we have contests, and that works really well for teenagers. They love to be competitive. And so, I'm indoctrinating them anytime I can. I fit those things into our family night each night. And I try to think about ways that I can give them some positive messages without being overly preachy. I try to make it fun. And then we'll have competitions throughout all, the week and do the pull-ups and stuff. And it's a lot of fun. And I've actually heard them bragging about me to their friends. My mom can do this many push-ups and she can do this many pull-ups. I'm like, yes.
That's awesome. Okay, you are, and I want to give people like some perspective. Like, you're not a marathon runner. Like, you've not been an athlete your whole life. You have made some choices that you've, just like you said earlier, that you've started to really prioritize caring for your body. And you are living that, you're modeling that to your kids, and they're responding. And now, like, anytime we just decide to do something as the mom, I think I've said it before, of like, just lovingly put your foot down. Like, it's okay to just decide and say, hey kids, this is what we're doing. And then to create whatever latitude you need within that. And it sounds like you have done that so beautifully, and I know that your kids already have and will still benefit from everything you've done. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it so much.
I don't shame them when they make choices to eat fast food,
I
don't
want to let them make their own choices when they're out of the home.
Yes, and that's one of our rules, and I'm glad you brought that up real quick. So within the home, I have control. It's my domain. Outside of the home, I don't. And so when you try to, I kind of have a saying, force is divorce. And it's not that I'm going to divorce my husband or my kids or anything, but what it is when you try to force somebody, they'll divorce themselves from you emotionally. They put up this wall, they separate themselves from you. And so the thing is I cannot control my kids 24/7. I am not with them 24/7. And when I set a good example, but in my home, that's my domain. That is where I have complete control. And so, I still I give them, some control within my control though. So I give them choices, I'm like, this, would you like this or this? I don't, say, what do you want? I say, would you like this or this? Because these are our choices. I let them know. And then that's my line. And so, yes, that was the biggest thing that changed our lives. It was, I think, probably like 10 years ago. That was a really kind of turning point for us, around 10 or 11 years ago, where I really did. I decided that my health and my family's health was of utmost importance. And so I, made that a priority in my life. And when I made that decision, anything that fell below that line, so, I looked at the scale of, okay, what are my green light foods? What are my yellow light foods? And what are my red? Anything that fell below that line, it was a no-go. And so one of the things real quick is that, too, what is your children's definition of healthy eating? If you don't have things to find, if you don't have goals, if you don't know where you're at right now, how can you know where you're going if you don't have that baseline? And so that was one of the things I did too with education of my children. I wanted to know, what did they think healthy eating is? And why, is it important to eat healthy? What effect does certain things have on your body? And so one of the things we talked about is, say maybe a red light food is a Snickers candy bar. Okay. Maybe a yellow light food would be a granola, but maybe a green light food would be like a chia seed, almond butter ball or something, like a protein bar that you make at home. And so sometimes my kids said, Mom, I know that this is a yellow light food, but I really want it. And I want to pick that instead of the green light food. And I'm like, okay. But they in their mind, they knew the difference because we had defined that, and that made all the difference in the world. So then they could make choices proactively because in their minds, they already knew this is a red light food, so I'm not going to touch that. But this is a yellow light food. It's a sometimes food, but I'm wanting that right now. So I'm going to choose into that. And that's where I give them that freedom. Is I said, okay, here are our 3-level choices. This is what it looks like. And so I educated them, and then they were coming to me and starting to tell me things. And they're like, you know what? My 9-year-old came to me the other day and he goes, Mom, I made a red light choice and my body doesn't feel very good. Oh, okay. I said, do you know that we can do better then? We can choose better? Yeah. He goes, I don't want something very heavy for breakfast. And so for breakfast, I actually just gave him some fruit. He chose to snack on some fruit because he said, I'm hungry, but I knew that if I gave him something kind of bulky and heavy that would be hard for his body and take it time to process, because he had already eaten some junk. What I choose to do on most of those days is all fast. If I make a choice that's not the best, and sometimes I do, I'm still human, then the next day, sometimes I'll fast. And I try not to do that too often, because if I find myself doing that more, then I know I need to check right here. So, that's what he did the next morning. I said, here, have some fruit. And he came to me later that day and he goes, thank you, Mom. I feel so much better.
I love that story. I love that story. You gave him the language, right? You gave him the construct, and then that gave him vocabulary to be able to come and have a conversation with you. And I love how he connected. I ate this. I knew that it was a red light food, and now I'm feeling this. Can you help me navigate? Can you help me feel better again, Mom? So powerful. So powerful. I love it.
Yeah, that's the point, is sometimes our children do need those slip ups. Sometimes they need to mess up because it's healthy for them to feel what that feels like in our body. And my 16-year-old has actually come to me sometimes and said the exact same thing. He goes, Mom, I'm not feeling so good. you know, and then I helped him connect the dots. Oh, what did you have last night? Well, I ate, you know, a big old bowl of ice cream. Oh, okay. Well, you know, do you see that maybe that wasn't the best choice? You know, do you think that that might be why you're not feeling good? He's like, yeah, I could have made a better choice. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And how much more is that gonna become their choice? They're gonna have ownership of that, because that's a lesson that they learned from their experience.
It's so important to help kids connect the dots and see the the causal effects of their choices. So it's not that we need to protect them from every kind of bad choice. It's that when they can trip and fall within the safety of our loving arms, where we can help them to see, okay, this is what the choice was, and this is what the effect of that was. And when they can do that as an adult, then they can start processing things. And so I'm seeing in my 9-year-old that he's coming to me and processing and seeing that, and I'm like, yes, that's what you want for your kids, and that's how to help them be successful for life.
I love it. I love it. There's so much goodness here, and so much of what we talked about can apply to anything. But parenting definitely overlaps with health and wellness. And when we're trying to take better care of ourselves, I think it makes sense for us to go ahead and bring our families along with us. In fact, I think it can actually be easier in the long run, because then it's not just you, but you actually get to change the environment and the food that's in your home for yourself and your family. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure everyone that listened to this got so much out of that. Again, everybody that's watching, come and find the YouTube channel or the Facebook group, Healthy Living with Danielle Dinkelman. Jill happens to actually be the co-author of the recipe book that you've probably heard about. It's 4 weeks of whole food plant-based dinners. There's a few breakfasts and a few lunches in there, and Jill collaborated with me on that. It probably wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for her. So I'm so glad that you got to meet her and hear what an amazing person she is and the wisdom that she has. So good luck helping your family, and just take it a step at a time, meet your family where they're at, and just decide and move forward together. So thank you again, Jill, and we'll see you all later.
Thanks everyone for listening.